Mr. Fortenberry of Nebraska, a strong pro-life legislator. Mr. Fortenberry, to close out our hearing.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the time, and thank you, gentlemen, for appearing for us today. I have a fairly lofty sentence in front of me. Basically, it says, I want to stress the importance of managing our complex relationship with China in a manner that honors the transcendent principles that define our national purpose and identity. But let me stop there. As I look out into the audience here, I see a number of young people, and I think it's important to get your mind around this. Many of you are perhaps newly married or hope to be married in the future. Let's suppose you are in China and the authorities come by and say, how many children do you have? Well, we have one, and we have one on the way. Well, that's one too many. Come with us. Can you imagine that in the United States? We can't even get our mind around these concepts, and yet this is President Hu Jintao's China of today. Now, I sincerely hope that as President Obama meets with President Hu, that human rights issues are going to figure most prominently in these discussions, and the White House has indicated some direction in that regard. But since I've been serving in Congress, members of both sides of the aisle have boldly challenged Beijing on the ruthless treatment of democracy activists and their families, internet freedom activists, religious minorities, and women and families victimized by a callous policy of coerced abortion. Now let's turn to economics. A full estimate is that we owe about $2 trillion to China, and we have a bilateral trade deficit approaching $300 billion. And of course, this poses weighty concerns. Where appropriate, I believe we must challenge China to abandon its unbridled mercantilism, which manifests itself in massive subsidies and other trade-distorting practices that contribute to this staggering imbalance. I think also we must look ourselves in the eye in the United States and take action to get our fiscal house in order, to revive our stagnant manufacturing industries, refurbish our industrial base, and take responsibility for our economic future. The reality is we buy their stuff and they buy our debt, and this is a truly dysfunctional marriage. So I think we have an obligation to forthrightly address the sources of tension in this relationship with China, and our commitment to mutual respect should never entice us to ignore these very serious concerns. And I hope that the administration will echo these concerns in their meetings today with Chinese leadership. My question to the panel is this. The Chinese give cover to the North Koreans. The Chinese do business with Iran. The Chinese do not respect human rights. What type of world does China envision? What is their end game? A nationalistic surge underwritten by a new capitalistic communist model never foreseen in the history of the world? Can you comment on that, please?
I'd be very happy to comment. I think the Chinese objective is very much focused on the here and now. Mr. Yang emphasized that they have a legitimacy deficit, and their legitimacy rests on economic performance. And to do that, they need stability. And to do that, they have to interact with the world on a lot of different ways, with economic development being primary. And so to confront the United States in a major way is something that I think is not fundamental to what they're about right now. Their long-term plans are very vague. They've got a very big agenda for the short term, and it's going to keep them busy for a long time.
So does raising the concerns that I raised, as well as many others today, help address or give rise to more legitimacy concerns as they further distance themselves from what we would consider to be the international community of responsible nations?
The idea that we should address all the issues that you've mentioned in a forthright way is very, very clear. We should do that, no question. But I think your idea that somehow the Chinese have this plan for domination and control of the world, I think a better image is that China is a bit scrambling, trying to keep legitimacy, trying to keep control over a very, very vibrant economic and social situation that isn't under good control in many respects.
Does raising the issues I just raised hinder their quest for this legitimacy?
I think it could. It could.
Or do they not care because economics trumps everything?
No, economics doesn't trump everything. There's prestige is important as well, and their position is important as well.
Thank you.